without further ado, I would actually like to start coding. Let's start. So what you see here on the screen is pretty much a standard new Fuse project. I have taken the liberty to add a couple details to it so that it would be, more swift. However, it usually starts with just a menu UX file with an empty app tag. So basically, as you can see, the app starts and ends right there. Right, so it should be fairly simple. The app starts, the app ends. I think everyone gets that concept.
Any chance you can bend the light? Because it's not really seen.
Not really, because if you turn them off, then everything goes dark. And we are still trying to film it and live stream it, so sorry. The next file you get is a project file, the extension.
Maybe you can make the font bigger?
That's a good
Make it bigger.
question. That's a good question. Can I? Where?
Maybe common plus, like
Common plus. Wow, it's happening. It's actually. You see that, right?
I'm trying to review. There should be color sample.
Yeah, it looks good, I think. Should be fine. So, okay, anyway, that's the project file, basically, that you get. In there, what's important? Not much. Basically, this project file states what packages will be used by it. Say, if, for example, we were trying to open a web view or, an external link or something, then we would also add a new package in here, which would be called fuse.launcher. So it's kind of, the more complicated the app gets, the more packages you have to use. You have Fuse geolocation if you want to use the GPS of the device. You have this Fuse launcher, and there's several other packages like that. This includes file that basically states if I was going to include a JavaScript file from a subfolder or something, then I have to explicitly include that in the project file, but we will get to that. The most interesting part obviously happens in the menu file. Now, we have an empty app here. We have that preview window there, and if I go and add a background, now, hex code. Okay, make it dark or make it light? White. It's already white, you won't see the change. Okay, let's make it bright red. Well, no one likes the bright red. So you see what happened. I wrote that background equals sharp F00, clicked save, and immediately I got that on the screen. Now, who of you think that is awesome? Raise your hands. That's almost everyone, but there's a bunch who thought it wasn't awesome. Okay, fantastic. We'll keep working on that. Now I need an actual hex code because obviously we won't go with this one. So make it light, make it dark. CCC, that's gray. Light gray. Okay, I'm fine with that. Now, another thing that I have to say, Davis, tell me. Yeah, fantastic. Another thing that I have to tell you is let's try to keep this simple, right? Let's not use geolocation and that kind of stuff today. Let's just try to make, some sort of a user interface that's nice to touch and play with. So that's a hint. Now, the big question I have here is what our application will do. So try to think of things that you can put inside of a list and then maybe click on them and open them and view more details. So what could be that list? What do we want to make a list of? Cafes to go to, I don't know, something. Anything? CEO guy.
I want to try different glasses on the
Glasses?
faces of the people.
On faces. Right, okay. Well, how about today we just go for buying glasses?
Go for buying.
Just for the styles, colors and that kind of stuff. Yeah, awesome, fantastic. So our application will be about glasses. So does the light gray still fit? Are you okay with that? Okay, good. No. Black?
No.
They said no, so let's stick with this one.
Probably you should have modes like they.
We could add that, but maybe a bit later in the process. That's a good idea. Now, what we have to start with, obviously, is we kind of have to start building the main screen, the main list. I wouldn't start with a login screen or something. We can add that later if we want to, but let's just start building the main part of the application. So what we want in there is basically a list of items, right? So, and those items, how would they look? Let's make a panel, right? A panel is a core construct of views. You do basically everything with panels. I just put it there, but obviously it's not visible on the screen because there's nothing in the panel. And if I go here, I think you don't see that, but it actually, the panel takes up the whole available space, right? So it's basically the whole application. Now that's not what we want for our list items. We want them to be maybe like 60 points high, or maybe let's go for 80. So again, you see it's pretty much a plain English. Panel height 80, right? Now we don't see that element. Let's give it a background color. Background color that is slightly different from the light gray. So background, hex code,
FFF.
F, F, F. Now we see our panel, finally, fantastic. As you can see, it's there in the middle because that's what happens when you have no alignment set on it. We simply constrained its height to 80 points, right, so that made it shrink vertically. What we want to do is probably put the panel up there, but not just yet. Now, what I don't like about this panel specifically is that it actually touches the ends and it doesn't look too nice. I don't want to resize the panel itself, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put a rectangle inside of the panel, and rectangle is just another panel basically that takes up the whole available space, right? So let's add a rectangle in there, and let's set the color of it to FFF, right? And basically the effect is the same. Now I can start playing with this, and you know, you can add those rounded corners that everyone likes. So that's what we have here. We say corner radius is, let's make it 5. And you kind of can see that, but however, the rectangle still touches the size, so that's a slight issue that we have to fix. And how do we fix padding issues? With setting margins and paddings, right? So panel, we won't push the panel away from the sides. We let it stay there. We will push the contents inside of it away from the panel side, so we use padding here. So we say padding equals 5, for example. And now you can see that the rectangle actually shrunk a bit, both vertically and also from the sides. Now it's actually starting to look a bit more like a, you know, a list item. Now it's just one item, there's not much use of it. So what we do next is we want to have multiple items. So one thing I could do is, of course not. I mean, who would do that kind of thing? So what we do is we say that this is a UX class, and we assign it a name, say list item. I think that's a nice name. And if I save, then it's gone because I just created a reusable component that I can reuse. And what we do then we add a new stack panel. So what stack panel does, it's again just another kind of panel that by default takes up the whole available space. But the huge difference with stack panel is when you put things inside of it, you know, in an order, it kind of stacks them on top of each other. You can have horizontal stack panels as well, but we don't need one for the list. So in here, we say list item. Just a single tag closing it right away. And now we get it back, but it's on the top because in a stack panel, all items try to stack to the top, which is kind of common sense. Now, if I need to get more items, what do I do? Of course not. Well, that's one way to put it, right? Now, this is just a test. We will get rid of this nonsense. Now, I see a little problem with that, and the problem is that at the top we have a 5 points margin, but in the middle we actually have 5 from one item and 5 from the other, and that's just ugly. So let's fix that. We remove the padding here. We don't need it there anymore, and instead we say that stack panel has a padding of 5, and we also say that it should be spacing its items by 5 points. And when we save that, then we get actually what we wanted: 5 points between each list item and 5 points from the sides. And I still think it kind of makes sense, and it's not that complicated. You play around with paddings, you have item spacing, you have margins and that kind of stuff. And I mean, corner radius, it's just obvious, right? Now, next thing. Okay, let's get rid of this nonsense of having multiple list items. And this is the part where I will actually try to introduce some JavaScript into the mix, because, you know, we would be getting those list items from an external source, like a JSON API or something, pulling a list from a server. Now, today we don't have immediate access to an API that provides a list of classes, so we will make sort of a mock backend. Basically, we will just define the list of items we have within our project, you know. Now, one thing I could do, and I will need a vote on this, I can include inline JavaScript in the UX file, or I can do it the proper way and make an external JavaScript file for the business logic. So, external file. Anyone supporting that idea? Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. So, what we are writing is, here is JavaScript. File equals, let's call it just main.js for now. And if I save that, there's a problem. File does not exist, obviously. So what I do now is I go to the project here, and I create new file, and I just save it as main.js. Now, yeah, and it worked just fine. Now we have included a JavaScript file inside of the project, but the JavaScript file does not do much, right? Now, Fuse JavaScript part follows the common JS module system. If you know what that is, you do, right? So the most important part that you have to know about that is syntax. You know, how the language looks like. So we write module, which is this file, this main.js file, that's the module, and we tell that it exports an object. So that's a JavaScript object. And, well, for now it's just an empty object, and that's fine for us. Still, everything's working fine. Now, we need to get the list of items. So what I will do will be, I will actually add a list in there, in the module export, and say that it's the variable list that we currently don't have. So the variable list, we have to create it, and it will be an, I'll just start with an array for now. And in that array, so we had glasses, right? So let's just make some objects. So what properties do glasses have, or what properties will we want to show?
The color,
Color.
size,
Hang on, right, okay. Size. And price. We could actually, but then I need to get those images from somewhere, and I'm not sure I want to waste time with that. We could, but let's see if we get to that. So obviously price. Now, yeah, give me a color. Hex code. Finally, we get to black. Fantastic. Now, that obviously has to be a string. Size. Give me a size.
56.
That's the size of,
Yes.
of the head, right?
No, it's between your eyes or something like this.
Centimeters.
It's 5. I don't know, but they say 5, 65, 56, something like that.
Okay, so for this one, it's 56. let's small 56. We'll have various variants of those. Now price.
Expensive.
200 euros. 777.
So that's the next one. So we will keep adding these now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make it 5. Hex code.
FCC.
FCC. Next hex code.
FAB.
FAB. Next. 00. 00F, which is blue. Fantastic. Hex code.
95C.
95C. You know what I like most about this? That I never actually got a symbol that is not a hex thing. That's awesome. Thank you. Now we have to add more sizes.
56.
We had that above.
42.
65.
65. I heard 42 and I like that very much. Thank you. Next.
Mid large.
Sure.
X large.
I see where you're going. So we'll just say XL. Price. Next price. 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, 0, and 99. Fantastic. Now finally we can actually save this. Now what we have got is basically an array of objects, and those objects have properties inside of them. So I could say list specific element at an index dot color, and I get that property, right? And our module also exports that to our UX, which means now in here inside of our stack panel, what I can do is I can iterate over that list that's available from the JavaScript, and the tag to do that is each, and I say each items equals, and here's where we get to data binding stuff, and I can tap into that JavaScript array here by this name that I just gave it. So each items list, we indent that, and we close the each obviously, and now when we save, voila, we actually got those items in there. Now the thing is, the list item reusable component doesn't tap into that object at all, so we should make it do that. Now we only have this background rectangle, and that's fine. I mean, it's the style of our list item. Now what we would want to add is, you know, somehow add this information so that it makes sense. I will probably need a UI UX experience on this one. So what do you want me to do with those three properties? So we have color, we have size, and we have price. I don't know, are we missing a name maybe? Or a model?
Brand.
Brand. Fantastic. So let's add brands. I hope you know 5 brands. So I will just add these placeholders. So it says brand, 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 another brand, another, and finally another. Hit me. Fine.
Lacoste.
This one, Lacoste.
Yeah.
That one.
Prada.
Prada. Abibas. Fantastic. And final.
Fuse.
Fantastic. Now, okay, we have brand, we have color, we have size, and we have price. And now we have to somehow come up with a good representation of those. So if we have this panel, the list item of ours, where do you want the brand to go? On top of what? The panel is like this. So probably on the left side, right? So that makes sense. Corner. I'll do whatever you tell me, seriously. Now, you know, I could simply put a text item in there, displaying the brand, but that's not really what I want to do. I would immediately want to break down that list item into, you know, some placeholders or places where the list item properties will be held.
Let's
So
create some placeholder for image
Yeah, we can do that. So just a place for that.
rectangle or something.
Fantastic. Well, I still don't have an image, but I can quickly download one, you know, and use that. Anyway, what I want to put in there is actually a grid. That's an awesome thing to have because, you know, the grid is flexible and grid has what? Grid has columns. Yeah, absolutely. And it also has rows, by the way, but we will only use columns for this simple example. So, and the approach here is we will have the brand, we will have the color, which will probably be a rectangle of that hex code, right? And then the price, and what was the fourth? I already forgot. Size, obviously. Right, so here I will actually split, you know, in 4 equally sized columns. So that, how you read that is 100%, and if you get 4 100%, they are all equal all the time. You can resize the screen, have it running on a device, and it will sort of expand and get back together. So that's columns. Obviously, saving doesn't do much. There's just a grid, but you don't see it. So what we need to do is put something inside of that grid. So for now, I will simply add 4 panels, because, you know, that's the number of those columns we have. And, well, you don't see them currently. So hex code, you're too slow. Or am I too fast? So we will just make it super bright colors here, just so you see it, right? I'm saving that. Now, what we actually got, you see those colors, right? Those are the grid columns. Probably the size won't fit us too well with that information that we are going to show, so I think I will go with something like 2 here. That becomes larger. The rest take up the remaining space. So that will be the brand. For the color, for the price, I think we would be fine with those. However, for the size would not fit. So let's maybe make this 3, make this 2, and those stay 1. No, not really. 2, 2, 3. No. Yeah, let's just stick with this. It could be 2, 1, 1, 1, but I think it's fine. Now, we want to remove those background colors now. It was just for display purposes. What we do next is we actually show the data. So let's make the panel an open and closing tag so we can put stuff inside of that panel. That's how you kind of think and fuse. Panel, grid inside of the panel, another panel inside of the grid, and something inside of the panel. And inside of this first panel, the red one, what do we want to put? The brand, right? So what we do is actually we say it's text, and set the value of it to, guess, it's brand, and it's just brand. Now let's try to save and see what happens. Very interesting thing. You actually have the brand, Lacoste, Prada, Abibas, and Fuse in there, which was magically pulled out of those objects here. Now what happens, an important thing here, when we have the each looping through the items, inside of that each, the data context gets narrowed down to that single item inside of that list. And that's super convenient because, you know, then you don't have to do stuff like list dot something dot brand. You're iterating on that level, and that iteration is available on as many levels as you like. You can iterate on top and then keep iterating on lower levels with the nested each statements and so on, and that's just awesome. Now, I don't think that's the right place or the look of the thing. So you didn't like the workshop? Okay, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming and install Fuse. Fantastic, thank you. So here with the text, I would actually want it sort of centered in that panel. That would look nice. So what we do is we set an alignment to it and make it just center. Now that looks more like it. Maybe not perfect, but still, you know, it's fine. I don't like the size of the font. I think it should be bigger, right?
Make it bigger.
Make it bigger, perfect. So, no, it's not box sizing. What am I writing? It's font size. And yeah, we should make it probably 18 or maybe even more, 20. Yeah, that's more like it, right? Now, if I had an OTF or TTF file, I could use a font in there, and it's as simple as specifying as font equals something. So I am free to use fonts in the application. However, I would strongly suggest only using fonts for labels where you are in control about what the contents are going for the text to be, because you know you run into left to right, right to left languages and so on, and your font could simply not support that. So that's sort of a risk to use fonts on user-generated input or names and surnames and that kind of stuff. So I would personally suggest only using fonts on labels, buttons, and so on, where they also look nice. Now, for now, we will simply stay with a standard operating system font. That would obviously look different on iOS and on Android, but I mean, that's something that the users have already gotten used to. So it's safe to only play with the font size. That's at least my thinking. Now we have the brand. What was the next one? Color. Now with the colors we have the hex codes, right? I honestly hope this is gonna work. So what we want. Sorry.
Panel background to our color pipe. We have an items and we have the color.
Yeah.
We have the panel.
Yeah.
We can set the background of this panel.
Yeah, but it's a big panel. I think there should be a circle in there showing the color. I think that would be nice. You know, we have those rounded corners there already, so something round should be there. Or are you against bubbles
Make
or
it bigger.
balls? Perfect. Okay, I can make a rectangle bigger or a circle bigger. So
Second.
circle, perfect. Okay, let's go with a circle. So how do you think a circle is called in Fuse? It's a circle. Fantastic. So what we do is we add a circle in there. Now, a circle obviously has some width and height, if you like. However, I think our circle, if we just put it there, it will again take up the whole available space. That's basically what all the items do, or elements in Fuse. Now, I would actually want to simply give it some margin so that it pushes down, so we can actually resize our list item in a reusable component, and the circle will grow with that. So we will get to that in a second. So circle margin equals maybe 10, and for circle I think I should go for color, and the color should be data bound to our color property here, and I honestly hope this is gonna work. I'm not sure. It did. Fantastic. So now you actually see those hex codes that you chose. I'm not sure about the Abibus one, but it fits. It fits it really well. Maybe we should also add
Stripes.
2 stripes on there, or maybe 7.
You can have the second cycle. You will get the glasses.
Absolutely. Right. So again, I make it bigger.
It's okay.
I'd like it smaller. Can I make it smaller?
This one, please.
Yeah.
You are fired.
So
Make the margin bigger.
make the margin bigger. I'll make the margin. Thank you. You just saved me. Fantastic. So that's still, the margin was still too small. I made it even more bigger. Now, we could also add some sort of an outline to the circle, right? And I'm not sure what color would fit. Maybe black.
No, don't do that.
No? Okay, I'm fine. Whatever you say, you know. Lime color. So let's make a change to Abibus. Let's see what happens if I say lime. Something went wrong. So obviously the thing that you see now is that unable to convert lime to float 4. That was kind of expected. I was hoping to get this screen eventually. Now I saved it back. Now it again works. You see how it is how easy it is to fix your mistakes. It dies, you restart, you save, and there you go again. Now,
Well, debugging, we have the more complex
Uh, well, actually, that would work quite similar. Now, for JavaScript, hardcore JavaScript, business process development and debugging, you can use Visual Studio Code and actually attach to the process, and set breakpoints and that kind of stuff. But we are not going into that today. We don't have that complicated business logic. Now, what else do we have? We have the size and the price, right? And for those I can reuse, I think, the text element for now. So inside this panel we are going to put the size, and let's make this panel open and close, and we show the price. Fantastic. Now when I save, now you actually see that we got both the sizes and the prices on there. Now, of course, I know you guys over there, you would like to see the prices with, formatted with 2 decimal symbols, and add currency in there or something. But again, we are not going there today. We are just making something. Now, what is this missing? Can anyone tell me?
Headings.
Headings. No, it's not missing headings. We can add headings easily. I think the most important thing that it's currently missing is the feel of the application. It's just a static list. Even if it was dynamic and the items, went over the screen, what would happen if I simply copy and paste these, 3 times maybe? I don't see the items below, right? So that's a huge problem, and I think that's a UI, UX problem. So how can we solve that? Any guesses? Scroll bar, scroll view. That's a scroll view. Now what we do here, you see this stack panel that stacks the items, right? So what we do is actually we add a scroll view on top of that. We kind of put our stack panel inside of a scroll view. And now when we save, we can immediately scroll our list from top to bottom. And I mean, it kind of includes this default bouncy effect that you usually get on iOS, but it feels just as nice on Android. And I mean, it's just fluent, right? So this is basically where you can see the power of Fuse, that all animations actually run on a separate thread, and it doesn't, freeze or something or lag. So that's just, I mean, that's fantastic. So if you agree that it's fantastic, raise your hands. Fantastic, almost everyone, and even those guys. Oh, fantastic. Now we have the scroll view, and I don't know why I keep doing this in all of my applications. Do you do that too?
Yes.
I mean, there's no point to that, but we are still doing it. I don't know why.
Facebook updating the lines.
Yeah, well, we could add a pull to reload to this, if we had an actual backend. How do you think we would implement that? Any guesses?
Doing something really like load.
There's a pull to reload trigger. Imagine that. So, okay, it's obviously not as simple as that, and it requires, again, binding to JavaScript functions that get the data, but you actually do have a pull to reload trigger that you can use to get that motion. So, I mean, that's just fantastic. Now, the next thing that we would want to do, what could that be?
Let's add some action. For example, we have a list of items. Now I want to sort it, or now I want to delete all those.
Delete. How about first opening the item? Right.
That is the item. We have something more.
Well, that's just a list of things. If you click on one, you should actually get a page showing more details, a description on how cool these AB bus blue glasses fit you.
On fleek section.
Yeah,
Double.
absolutely. So let's dive into that. Now, bear with me. This is gonna get a bit more complex, and one thing that is a real problem is the big font size here, and you don't see the whole code, right? So there's no way around that, except maybe I can simply, collapse this part, the list item, right? So we see more of the code. Now what I have to introduce is some navigation to our application. And Infuse navigation is actually, again, taken care of on behalf of us. So there are ready-made tools that you can use. So first thing that I have to add is actually a router. And I have to add it, assign it a UX name that I can, call it later. So the UX name is router. Now the magic with the router and UX name is that this router that I defined in UX is immediately available in my JavaScript file here by the UX name. So whenever I want to do something from JavaScript, make the the UX part to do something, I can do that from JavaScript by the UX names. Now this is a bit technical, but I think the concept should be still clear for everyone, right? So we added this router. The router itself, doesn't do much in our UX code. So what we have to do is add some navigation. And navigation is called navigation. Actually, no, it's called navigator. Inside of a navigator, I think it was, I have to check the docs, sorry, quick one. Now this is actually what you see how actual coding looks like. All the time you're switching between documentation and your actual code, and you have to check on stuff. No, just Fuse docs, you can check this. I don't have Stack Overflow open. So anyway, the navigator was fine. Now inside of a navigator, what we have are actually templates. And that kind of makes sense, because the navigator and router, it takes care of freeing up memory for you. So basically when you have a page sliding out of the view, it has to be removed from the memory. So what we put inside of a navigator is a panel, unsurprisingly I would say, and we give it a UX template equals list, for example, right? And inside of that panel we will now move our scroll view. I have to fix the indentation. And for navigator, I can assign a default template. So, in a real-world application, that would be Splash or login screen or something. We don't have that, so we will just say list. When I say that, nothing changes, and that's how it should be, because, we are in that page, in the list template. So that's currently the list page is active, and there's an instance of it during the runtime. Now, what we want to add is another panel. I'm just adding the white spaces here so we can see stuff. And this panel will get a UX template name of item, for example. Now when I save that, again, nothing happens, right? Now what I would want to do, so that you simply see that something is happening here, again, I will add a rectangle and assign it a color, make it hex code. Oh, that's dark. That's dark. Okay, I'm fine with the 666. Anything goes. Now, again, when I say nothing happens because that page is not active, it's somewhere. It's just a template. There's no instance of that page. So what we would actually want to do is now when a single item gets clicked, the whole panel, not just something inside of there, then we would go to the item page. Now what we do then is, that's our list item template here, the UX class, the reusable component. We could do that in there, I think. Yeah. So here we have the grid. That's basically the visual part. We have the rectangle, which is the background, and all of that is of height 80, right? Now we want all of that bar to be clickable. So what we do here is we say that, no, not click, hit test mode, obviously, is local bounds and children. So basically whenever that panel itself gets hit with a click, or its children register a click with a finger, then it kind of registers the click on itself. That doesn't help much, because what we have to do is add a trigger for the click. So how could the trigger be, how could we call it? So, any thoughts, any guesses?
Trigger.
Yeah, for clicked.
Trigger.
It's called clicked, obviously. And I really like how in Fuse UX markup it just reads in plain English. I mean, everything just makes sense, at least to me. After 10 months of intensive development, I'm not sure about you. Now, in that clicked trigger, I actually want to raise a callback, which will tap into JavaScript. And for that callback, I need to have a handler, which is a JavaScript function. Right? So again, we go into data binding stuff, and we'll call the function open item. Right? So callback handler open item will get called when the clicked trigger on our list item will get activated. Right? Now, if I save that now, obviously that won't work because there's no function called that way. So what we do is first we add the open item again to our module exports so that UX could actually have access to that. And in here we create a function called open item, which is basically this variable, right? Function open item. I will need to pass some arguments in there, and we will get to that shortly. And here we say router. We can do that because in the menu UX we have the router specified with the UX name, so it's accessible. And for the router we say go to, again, super English. And how was that template called? It was item. Fantastic. So go to item. And well, yeah, open item art. So the thing here is I'm telling the router that whatever router outlet it has in there, and there's only one, this navigator, that's called the router outlet, I'm telling the router to try to go to an item template by passing it some object. So basically I could tell that page that is receiving the event that one specific item and which one of those items is being opened. Now currently we don't do that. Let's just save these two files and click on something and see what happened. We actually got the page to open, and I kind of like that. Is that awesome? Yeah, it totally is. I can't go back, obviously, and that's a huge problem. So that's the next step that we actually have to take care of. We have to be able to go back. Now let's make it super quick. I'll take this one on me. So the panel itself again takes up the whole available space. I will now introduce you to a new kind of panel, and it's a dock panel. Dock panel is quite similar to a regular panel, but you have to think about dock panels a bit differently. It's kind of a box, super flat box. There's no volume to it, but it's still a box. Now inside of a dock panel, you know, we talked about stack panels, how they stack things inside of them on their own. Inside of a dock panel, you are responsible about docking those things, and you can dock them to top, bottom, left, right, or fill the remaining space. Now another important thing about the docking is docking order. Say if you dock an item to the top of that box, and then you dock another item to the top of the box, that spot is already taken, so the next thing gets docked right after the first one. So the order is really important. So basically what you see here in the code is sort of, you can think of them as layers in Photoshop. So whatever is on top is more visible on top. So the order is really, really important. So why did we turn this into a dock panel? Because I want to dock a status bar or something at the top so that we can add a back button on it. That's the only reason. So here I'm writing again a panel dock equals top, unsurprisingly. that panel need to get some height. I really like 60 points for that. It feels just fine. And I think the panel, it should be, get a bit different color than the background. Now the question for the UI UX guys, lighter or darker?
Lighter.
Lighter. Fantastic. So for that we have 666. Let's go for 999. Right? So we say background equals 999. Now when we save that, now you can see the status bar actually shows up.
What kind of points? What is the point? Is it pixels or?
No, it's points, and the points depend on density in the device. So for example, iPhone 6 with the Retina screens, you get those 60 points. It's something like 180, I think, pixels, because the density is 3, right? So that's points for you. Depends on the device screen density. So it's kind of safe to work with the points because you know that the element will always take roughly the same amount of visual space on the device. So you obviously do have the option to work with pixels if you like. You can specifically say 60px, I think. Yeah, it works. But it's 60px only on this specific screen and this projector. But as soon as you launch that on an actual device, it will shrink by 3. So it's just safe to use the default points and let Fuse take care of that. Does that answer your question? Fantastic. Right, so we have our status bar on the top. And for this, I usually actually go with a grid. And now we will again add some columns, but this time I would be setting the first column to 60 points wide, so it's 60 by 60, a nice rectangle that you can hit. 60. The next column will take up all available space, and then if I wanted to, I could add another column on the right side for a different kind of icon. I don't know, maybe by or something. So let's say it's another 60 here. Now we close the grid, and inside of the grid obviously we have to add those 3 panels that represent the columns. Now there's nothing inside of them. Let's put inside of this panel just a text with a value of back. It seems appropriate. Yeah, it's there. Now alignment of that would be obviously center, in the center of the 60 by 60 rectangle. And I want the color for it to be white and font size to be, again, 20, I think. No, that looks almost like a back button, we would usually use those rounded corners, sharp corners things, but arrows or something, but let's just stick with this. Now what I need to do is actually add a clicked trigger on this so that the router can go back. Panel hit test mode, local bounds and children, and I'm setting that here because, well, what would happen is if I didn't set that hit test mode, if I clicked somewhere here below the text, it wouldn't register the click because it by default only registers clicks on some visible stuff. So the clicks sort of shine through whatever elements are transparent. So by specifying this hit test mode, you make the whole rectangle respond. And inside of that, a clicked trigger with a callback handler to go back. Yeah, that's again a data binding, and we have to add that function to both our module exports and also actually create the function. It does not need any arguments because we are just going back to the list. So how do you think can we tell the router to go back? No, we just tell it to go back. And I think that's awesome. Now when I save both files and click back, it's not working, and the question is why. That's a problem actually, because I don't know what just went wrong. Well, I could actually go to list. I'm not sure I want to. Debugging time. So Fuse does support some built-in debugging. So here we can say console log go back was called. Alright, so when we save that, then we actually have to switch over to Fuse dashboard, and here we can fire up our monitor. So there's no output. So if I keep clicking on back, go back was actually called. So a router does not know where to go back to. That's as far as I can tell. I'm not sure what's the mistake that I made.
Try going to list for the router.
I actually know. The problem was that I set it to go to this item page, and what go to does is it basically discards the history. You just go to that page and that's it. There's no route back. So instead of using a go to, we would actually push the item on top. So that makes sense. Fantastic. Now there's obviously, it's still not working because it was already pushed, or we went on that. I'm hoping now I can restart the preview. Hopefully. Now, I'll just make a quick fix. I'll say router go to list just quickly, so that we can go back. Fantastic. Now I'm removing this and I'm restoring this. I'm removing the console log, saving everything, and now it actually started working. Fantastic. So sorry, my mistake about confusing go to and push and what they do. So now you can see that the router does have at least 3 useful methods, not just 2. Now the interesting thing when you think of Android is, well, how many of you guys use Android phones? So that actually looks like more than a half. So the Android user experience, at least in my case, I must confess that my primary phone is an iPhone 6, but I also do a lot of development on Nexus 5 Android. So when I need to go back to somewhere, I tend to not use those back buttons that are on screen. I just click the hardware button, just back. That's pretty much how the Android stuff goes. And the awesome thing, again, I think that's awesome. With Android and router combination, in Fuse, the back button just works. So if you pushed a page on top of something else, the back button just slides it away.